This is part 2 of 30 days React challenge. Today we will going to learn about the quick start section of React documentation. So what is quick start is all about? First, they welcome you. So welcome to the React documentation. This page will give you an introduction to 80% of React concepts that you will use on daily basis. So basically they are trying to say if you do this part, you are equipped enough to create a good React application. That's a great news. You will learn how to create and nest components, how to add markup and styles, how to display data, how to render condition and list, how to respond to event and update the screen, okay, how to share data between components. Cool. There is no way to hide this. Okay. Create and nesting components. React app are made out of components. Okay, we know that. What is a component? A component is a piece of UI that has its own logic and appearance. Okay, this is something we can add. Have we added anything? No. So this is what we will going to add right now, and our heading will be components. Awesome. So first is definition. Okay, spell is wrong. First is definition. So the definition of a component is a piece of UI that has its own logic and appearance. Okay, so this is the definition of. I'm gonna bold this one here so that bold it and underlined. Cool. A component can be small as button or as large as entire page. React component are JavaScript function that return markup. Okay, this is something we can add in the definition as well, like they are JavaScript function or classes as well, because I have mentioned earlier there are two types of component present in JavaScript. One is the class type, the other one is the function type. We will be working on function type because that is more easier to learn and it's more clean way to work, whereas class you should be very comfortable with oops logic. So yeah, they are written with function, like a normal function you declare in JavaScript with the function name, parenthesis, and in return you're returning a JSX. Now that you have declared my button, you can nest it to another component. So suppose my app is the main page which will be rendered on your screen. You can just add my button there. Okay, important point. Notice that my buttons start with a capital letter. Okay. That shows it's a React component. That's a very important point to keep in your mind. React component names must always start with a capital letter, while HTML tag must be lower. Okay, so if you see a code like this and you see something called div h1 or my button, so you should know if this is a lowercase, it's an inbuilt function tag, whereas if it's an uppercase, it's a component. So what I mean is that let's open our code. Yeah, this is our minimal app. Cool. Okay, let's go to app.js. I'm gonna remove everything here. So, yeah, go away. So we have something called H1 here. So hi, I'm learning React. Okay. Then suppose I have a component here, so I'm going to create a component folder here. I like to segregate my components in one. So how to create a component? So you just need to write a function here, name my button. Since this is a component, the name of the function should be capital. Add your brackets, and then you have to return a JSX. So I'm going to return my button here. Hi, I am. I'm going to just write React button for small. Okay. Definitely now I have to export this. Don't worry if you don't understand export right now. We will cover this in our later topic as well. My button. Okay. So this is how you write a component. Now all I have to do, I'm going to remove this part as well. I need to import this here. Okay. So the main reason I'm doing all this to explain you, like if you have two tags here, suppose one is my button, okay, line 7 is a HTML tag, whereas line 8 is a component. So your component name should always start with a capital letter, and in your markup it should be written with the capital letter. That is what the main point I want to convey here. So React component name must always start with a capital letter, while HTML tag must be lower cases. This is an important point as well. So I'm gonna write an H3 here. Important points about components. Okay. React component names must always start with capital letter, while HTML tag with lowercase. That's awesome. Have a look here. Okay. So this is our component button. I'm a button, and this is where they are importing it. Awesome. Let's open this here in a code sandbox. Okay. Give it a second. So I'm a button, and this is how it will be visible to your screen. The export default keyword specify the main component in the file. If you're not familiar with some pieces of Java syntax, MDN and JavaScript info have a great reference. That's true. So if you really want to understand how a JavaScript function works, go through MDN. Maybe we can do a series for that as well. Okay. Writing markup with JSX. The markup syntax you have seen above is called JSX. We have already studied about it. It is optional, but most React projects use JSX for its convenience. Okay. All of the tools we recommend for local development support JSX out of the box. So we already look into the tools we will be needing for our local development, and we have application with support JSX. JSX is stricter than HTML. Okay, this is an important point, like here. So I'm gonna add here important development. Oops. Okay. Important points about JSX. First, JSX is stricter than HTML. We will see how that is. You have to close the tag like BR break. So there should be a closing tag, or if you are using only one tag, it should be, self-closing itself. It should be self-closing. Your component also cannot return multiple JSX tags. So you cannot return two tags in the same return statement. You need to wrap into a shared parent like a div or an empty wrapper. Okay, why you should use empty wrapper? Because if you don't want to change your box model using extra div spaces, you can use an empty wrapper. All you have to do is to write here angle brackets, open close. If you have a lot of HTML to port to JSX, you can use an online converter. Of course, you can use an online converter, but I think JSX is pretty simple. So there are two rules you need to follow. First thing, you should always close your tags. Second, you can return only single JSX tag. Second thing, so let's write this. In JSX, you always close your tags, and I'm going to add this in here as well, and can return only one tag. Awesome. Adding styles. In React, you specify a CSS class with a class name. Okay, it works the same way as HTML class attribute. So in HTML, basically you add your class attribute and then you add your class name, whereas here you just have to add, instead of class, you need to add class name. Then you write your CSS rule in a separate CSS file, like .avatar border radius 50. React do not prescribe how you add CSS file. In the simplest case, you add a link tag to your HTML, and if you use a tool or a framework, consult its documentation how to learn your CSS file to your project. Okay, we will be using simple CSS files, so all you have to do here, suppose I have my button, so I can create one thing called my button.css. okay, and I'm gonna add, let's close this to have more space. Can write button, and I'm gonna add color as white or red. Let me make it a little more visible. Okay, And next you need to import this. Import my button.css. Okay, let's see if this works or not. So I'm gonna start my application. Start. Voila, you can see the button color is red. That's how you add your CSS to your any component. Okay. Displaying data. JSX let you to mark up into JavaScript. Curly braces let you skip back into JavaScript so that you can embed some variable from your code and display it to user. For example, username. That is a very interesting thing. Suppose you have a variable here, a username, and you want to display it in your JSX, so you can use curly braces. So suppose I want to add I'm gonna add a variable constant. Excuse me. Okay, so I'll create a new variable called button name, and I'm gonna add the name as React button. Okay, so if I see my app, you can see a white blob but not the name. Now I want to add this constant to my JSX. All I have to do is to add a curly braces here and write my constant name, button name. Again, it will be visible. That's how you add your constant name to your JSX. Okay, so this is also an important point. So curly braces let you escape back into JavaScript so that you can embed it some variable from your code and display it to user. I'm gonna add this as well. So is it related to JSX or React? It's related to React, right? Important components. Then I'm going to add this example as well, so that for the later reference we can check out if we want to learn. Okay, cool. You can also escape into JavaScript from JSS attribute, but you have to use curly braces instead of quotes. Okay, for example, class name avatar passes the avatar string as a CSS class, but src user.image URL reads the JavaScript image URL variable value, then passes that value to src attribute. Okay, so what you can do, suppose I'm gonna create another variable called button class, and the class name will be, what should I give the class name? As So I'll create a variable called button class, and I'm going to give a class name as React. I'm going to give the class name as React but. Okay, just make this a hyphen. Okay, and here I can add a class name, and I'm going to add a class name, and the same way I added, in my JSX to fetch data from my JavaScript, I'm gonna fetch the data for class attribute as well. So I'm gonna add my button class. Okay. In my my CSS, I'm gonna declare, what is the name of my class? Oops, Control C. This is the name of my class, right? React but. So React but, I'm gonna let's add a new line to it. Background color as blue. Okay, let's see if this works or not. As you can see, it may look very tacky, but it works. So that's how you can, fetch your class name and add it to an attribute through a variable. Okay, you can put more complex expression inside a JSX. Curly braces too, for example. Okay, so they have a user name Hardy Lamar. This is the image URL and this is the image size. They have created a component called profile component. Okay, let me poke this up. Cool. So this is actually the component they have created. So we have a user variable, which is an object with a name, image URL and image size. Then we have a component called profile. Okay, they have added a heading with the name username Hedy Lamar. Then they have created a tag, image tag. In that they have added a class name as avatar, so there must be some CSS they have added. Then src is user.image URL, so they are picking the data from here. In alt photo of plus the username, which is Hedy Lamar. Then they have added style. So now if you want to add style with the class or CSS class, you have to use double braces with username, which is the image size and the height as well. And that's how your browser will look. Awesome. Okay. In the above example, style is not a special syntax but a regular object inside the style. Okay. So basically what they are doing, so in styles what they have done, they have created a curly braces to access JavaScript, and then they have created an object. Okay, and that object has two key. First is width, the second is height, and in width you add your user image size, and in height as well in a user image size. That's why it's a circle. There they have explained in above example, style is not a special syntax but a regular object inside a style, curly braces. You can use style attribute when your style depends on JavaScript variables. Awesome. Conditional rendering. In React, there is no special syntax for writing conditions. Okay, instead you will use the same technique you use when writing regular JavaScript code. I mean, this is so awesome. You don't have to learn special syntax for everything. All you can use your JavaScript knowledge in React and create awesome web applications, at least the front end part. For example, if you use an if statement to conditionally include JSX, so let content if is locked in, then you want to show admin panel component, otherwise you want to show login form. Okay, and you're gonna return whatever the content value is. If you prefer to compat code, you can use conditional operator. So this is how a conditional operator works. If you don't need the else branch, you can use a shorter version as well. So is locked in admin panel. Okay, let's check that. Let's check this with a simpler example here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this here. Okay, let's clean this a bit. Okay, now there are 3 ways to render anything. Instead of button, I'm gonna create a list. Okay, so I'm gonna create my list .js. So this is my component list. Component looks like, basically it has a simple structure. I'm gonna import this in my app.js because that's is what being rendering my list. Okay, and here I'm going to remove this because my button is just an example, it doesn't mean anything. And here I'm going to add my list here. Awesome. So we are done, and in my list I'm going to add, we want to work. So let's do a simple logic. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create something called a number. I'm going to add the value 2 to that. Then I'm going to create something called let content, which will have my content, and the content value will base whether the number is even or odd. So I'm gonna check if my number mod 2 equal to 0, then content should equal to h1 tag. Hi, I am an even number. Cool. Else content equal to h1. Hi, I'm an odd number. Awesome. So the content value will depend whether this number is even and odd. Here I'm gonna add my content value. Let's see if this works or not. Hi, I'm an even number. Awesome. Okay, okay, this is the one type of conditional rendering you can do. Just write if condition, add the value to your variable using conditional operator. So it's a pretty simple thing as well. Instead of writing if else condition, simply I'm gonna do here. So if I'm gonna remove this as well. If my number mod 2 equal to 0, that is the case, return h1. Hi, I'm even. Else return h1. Hi, I am odd. So okay, it works this way as well. Now suppose if you don't have any else condition, you can again write it here. If number mod 2 triple equal to 0, if that is true, then return h1. I'm still even. Now if you check, this also works. So there are 3 ways of rendering. First is if else condition, add the content to a variable and just show that variable. Second is adding this conditional operator, whereas this is basically the short form of that. And third, if you don't have an else condition, just check the condition here and add the true one. Awesome. Let's check what else we have. All these approaches also work for conditionally specifying attributes. If you are unfamiliar with some of this JavaScript syntax, you can start by always using if and else. Okay. So if you don't understand this, why this is happening, just go with the normal method, write an if condition, add your content. It's okay. Okay. You don't have to be a show off at the starting of your learning curve. There are plenty of time in your career you can do that. Okay, this is how you conditional render something. Now suppose you want to render a list. You will rely on JavaScript feature like for loop and array map function to render list of component. For example, let's say you have an array of product, title cabbage id 1, garlic id 2, title apple. Inside your component, use a map function to transform an array of product into an array of list element. So basically what they are doing, they have created a map and where they have added li tag, and each tag will have their own separate product value, and you just show this list item. Now notice how li has a key attribute. Okay, this is a very important part. Key attribute, they always ask why rendering a list in React you use a key attribute. Notice how li has a key attribute. For each item in a list, you should pass a single string or a number that uniquely identifies that item among its siblings. Okay. Usually a key should be coming from your data, such as database ID. React will rely on your key to understand what happened if you later insert, delete, or reorder the item. Awesome. Okay, let's see what this means. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this product array and I'm going to add it here. So it's not important like you have to add your variable just inside the function. You can add it anywhere in your React file. Okay. Now I can create, a content here, and that content value will be my products. I'm gonna use a map. Oops, the spelling is wrong. Prod. Okay. I'm gonna add return. It should have an li, and the li value will be prod dot title. Awesome. And there should be a key value as well, which should be prod dot id. This is how you can add your content. So if I want to add it here, I can add my content here. Let's see if this works or not. You can see my content value. Awesome. So this is how you can add multiple same types of data. Now what they are saying, what is the use of a key? Suppose if I want to insert something here, first page, first or 0th index, I'm going to add this, I'm going to add this. Now I want ginger as well, and I'm going to add an ID 0 here. So okay, this is funny why they are showing this. Yeah, so basically what happens is this whole structure of your list will change, and for React, to have maintain what changes are done to each element, they will keep it using key. So now it will know, okay, this will become my second element of my array, third element, fourth, and this is a new entry. So how they will know that, how they will denote the new entry? They will denote with the key. They will say the element with whose key value is 0 is the new entry. The element whose key value was 1 became the second element, to keep a record of all the changes you will do to your list. That's why the key is used for. So this is a pretty important thing to know. And I'm gonna copy everything. So if you reorder it, insert it later on. Okay, I'm gonna add H4 here. Oh, we don't have. Rendering list. For each item in list, you should pass a string. Awesome. Once we are done with this, okay, so what we have covered till now, we have covered how to create a nested component. We have covered how to write a markup with JSX, how to add styles, display the data, conditional rendering, rendering the list. Now we will work with how to respond to